Have you ever looked around your home and noticed items piling up? Clothes you haven't worn in years, old magazines, maybe even that broken appliance you keep saying you'll fix. Clutter seems to accumulate quietly until, one day, we realize we're surrounded by things we don't really use or need. For many people, letting go of these objects can feel surprisingly difficult, even if they're aware of the mess. But why do we find it so hard to part with things, even when they no longer serve a purpose? Hoarding isn't just about keeping a few sentimental items. It's an intense attachment to objects that often leads to physical clutter, emotional stress, and sometimes even a sense of isolation. But what drives this behavior? The psychology of hoarding is complex, and it's an issue more common than we might think. According to recent statistics, around 6% of people in the United States alone show signs of hoarding disorder. This percentage may sound small, but in a country with hundreds of millions of people, it means that millions are struggling with this behavior. And hoarding doesn't just impact those who experience it. It can affect family members, friendships, and even communities. In this video, we'll delve deep into the psychology behind hoarding, exploring why certain people find it so hard to let go of their belongings. We'll look at scientific research, real-life stories, and insights from psychologists who specialize in hoarding behaviors. This journey will take us into the minds of those who hoard, revealing not only what drives the attachment to possessions but also the ways hoarding can affect daily life and relationships. Along the way, we'll explore various types of hoarding, the societal stigma that surrounds it, and how it differs from other common behaviors like collecting. We'll also discuss practical ways to manage hoarding tendencies and regain control over our spaces. As we move through this discussion, we'll be addressing some common misconceptions, like the idea that hoarders are simply lazy or that they can just throw things away if they really want to. We'll bring in some eye-opening case studies and statistics to help explain why hoarding is often misunderstood and why it's a serious issue that requires understanding and, in many cases, professional help. Whether you're someone who finds it difficult to part with things or you're curious about why others might struggle, this video will shed light on the fascinating, sometimes hidden world of hoarding. So, let's start by unpacking what hoarding truly is, why it happens, and the powerful psychology that keeps us clinging to our things, even when they no longer serve us. What is hoarding? Understanding the definitions and misconceptions, hoarding is more than just a messy room or a cluttered shelf. It's a complex psychological phenomenon that impacts millions worldwide. But what exactly does it mean to be a hoarder? While some might think of hoarding as just collecting too many items, the reality is far more nuanced. Hoarding disorder, recognized by the American Psychiatric Association in the DSM-5, is a persistent difficulty discarding or parting with possessions, regardless of their actual value. This difficulty is often driven by a perceived need to save items and distress associated with letting them go. The distinction between hoarding and simply keeping extra stuff lies in the level of attachment. For those with hoarding tendencies, the objects in their lives often hold intense emotional value that makes it nearly impossible to get rid of them, even when the item seems insignificant to others. This attachment can stem from memories, future aspirations, or a sense of identity tied to the objects. For example, a stack of newspapers might feel like a treasure trove of future reading material, and a broken piece of furniture could hold memories of someone special. Hoarding versus collecting. How to tell the difference? One common misconception is that hoarding and collecting are the same, but these behaviors are fundamentally different. Collectors are typically proud of their possessions and organize them in a way that's meant to be enjoyed by themselves and often by others. A coin collection, for instance, is usually well curated, organized, and possibly displayed with pride. In contrast, hoarders may feel ashamed of their clutter, rarely, if ever, allowing others to see the accumulated items. Instead of being neatly displayed, items in a hoarded home may be scattered and stacked without any order, often blocking rooms and creating hazardous living spaces. The key difference lies in functionality and emotional connection. Collectors seek to grow a specific, organized collection and often feel joy in managing it, whereas hoarders accumulate items without an organizational system. This accumulation is not about pride but about anxiety, fear, or a deep-seated need to keep things, even if they are no longer functional. Breaking down common myths about hoarding. There are several myths surrounding hoarding that can prevent people from fully understanding the disorder. One of the most common is the notion that people who hoard are simply lazy or unmotivated to clean their homes. In truth, hoarding is rarely about laziness. Rather, it involves a powerful emotional struggle where the idea of throwing items away causes significant anxiety or distress. Another misconception is that hoarding is just a bad habit that can be stopped at will. For those with hoarding disorder, parting with items feels as severe as losing a loved one, making it nearly impossible to simply let go. Another myth is that hoarding only affects the elderly or those living in poverty. Studies show that hoarding disorder spans across all ages, socioeconomic backgrounds, and cultural groups. In fact, recent research indicates that hoarding tendencies often emerge during early adolescence, and if left untreated, can worsen with age. It's also commonly believed that hoarders are always isolated or socially withdrawn. However, many individuals with hoarding disorder are highly social, maintaining relationships with family, friends, and even romantic partners, although their behavior may create strains in these connections. Statistics on hoarding disorder. A growing concern: hoarding disorder is more prevalent than many might assume. Recent studies reveal that between 2–6% of the global population exhibit symptoms of hoarding, though these numbers could be conservative due to the social stigma that prevents people from seeking help. In the United States alone, millions of people struggle with hoarding behaviors, leading to a range of issues from family disputes to financial strain. The economic impact is also considerable, as hoarding often leads to increased spending on storage, fines for property violations, and even health costs due to injuries or illness related to the cluttered environment. The costs go beyond individual expenses, impacting entire communities. Fire departments report that homes with extreme clutter create serious safety hazards, making rescues more challenging during emergencies. Some cities have even developed programs specifically designed to address the dangers posed by hoarding-related clutter. As awareness grows, the public understanding of hoarding has started to shift, moving away from judgment and toward empathy, thanks to both scientific research and high-profile hoarding cases that reveal the complexity of this behavior. Understanding these definitions, myths, and statistics is essential to recognizing hoarding as a serious and complex disorder. By breaking down these misconceptions, we can begin to see that hoarding isn't a choice or a result of laziness but a deeply rooted psychological issue that requires compassion, understanding, and, often, professional intervention. The psychology of hoarding. Why we can't let go. Hoarding taps into some of our deepest psychological triggers. At its core, hoarding behavior isn't about the physical objects themselves but rather the emotions and beliefs tied to them. Psychologists have identified a variety of factors that contribute to the development and persistence of hoarding behaviors, each one revealing insights into why letting go can feel impossible. From theories of attachment and trauma to unique patterns of thought and emotion, understanding the psychology behind hoarding helps us see it for what it truly is: a complex, deeply rooted condition. Attachment theory and fear of loss. One powerful explanation for hoarding behavior lies in attachment theory. This theory, initially used to explain bonds between parents and children, can also shed light on why people form attachments to objects. For many individuals with hoarding tendencies, items take on an emotional significance that goes beyond their utility or value. In many cases, objects may serve as symbols of past memories, relationships, or life stages. Losing these objects, then, feels like losing part of one's identity, past, or even loved ones. In this context, fear of loss becomes a critical aspect. Psychologists observe that the emotional distress of parting with a possession can feel just as intense as losing a significant person. Imagine a situation where every discarded item feels like a small bereavement. This intense fear of loss creates a powerful barrier to decluttering, making hoarding a self-reinforcing behavior where accumulated possessions symbolize security, stability, or control. Trauma and emotional attachment to objects. For some, trauma serves as a catalyst for hoarding behavior. Traumatic experiences, whether the loss of a loved one, abuse, or financial hardship, can amplify a person's attachment to belongings. Items become physical representations of safety and stability in an otherwise uncertain world. Research shows that individuals with a history of trauma may turn to objects as a means of comfort and protection. By surrounding themselves with items that evoke a sense of safety, they create a barrier between themselves and the outside world. Consider someone who has experienced a significant loss and now struggles to let go of their loved one's belongings. Each item, regardless of its actual utility, becomes a cherished memory. The idea of discarding any of it can trigger profound anxiety, even if the person recognizes that keeping everything may not be healthy. Psychologists have noted that the relationship between trauma and hoarding often creates a feedback loop. Possessions alleviate emotional pain temporarily, but over time, the growing clutter adds stress and strain, reinforcing the hoarding behavior. Behavioral and cognitive patterns that fuel hoarding beyond attachment and trauma. Hoarding is also shaped by unique cognitive and behavioral patterns. Cognitive behavioral psychologists note that many people who hoard experience irrational beliefs about their possessions. These beliefs may include thoughts like, "I might need this someday," or "this item is unique and irreplaceable." Such thoughts can make even ordinary objects feel invaluable, fueling a sense of urgency around keeping them. Hoarders often experience difficulty in organizing and categorizing items, which contributes to the clutter. Sorting through items might feel overwhelming due to decision fatigue, a psychological phenomenon where the brain becomes exhausted from making too many choices. For someone with hoarding tendencies, every item represents a choice, and each choice carries a significant emotional burden, resulting in decision paralysis. The clutter accumulates simply because the process of sorting through it feels insurmountable. The role of economic and sentimental value. Another important factor in hoarding is the concept of value, both economic and sentimental. Hoarders often assign value to items in ways that differ from those around them. For example, a piece of paper might seem worthless to others but is kept because of a personal memory associated with it. Alternatively, someone might hold onto an outdated electronic device due to its perceived potential usefulness, or because it once represented a significant purchase. Economic value often intersects with emotional value in surprising ways. Studies reveal that people with hoarding tendencies are more likely to see potential in seemingly useless items, even believing that these objects could be valuable to someone else in the future. This sense of imagined utility becomes yet another barrier to decluttering, as hoarders feel they'd be wasting the item's potential by throwing it away. Neurological insights, brain patterns and decision-making challenges. Recent neurological studies have uncovered fascinating insights into the brains of people who hoard. Researchers have found that the brains of those with hoarding disorder display unique patterns when making decisions about possessions. In studies using brain scans, individuals with hoarding disorder showed heightened activity in areas associated with emotional control, particularly when faced with discarding items. This increased activity suggests that the act of letting go triggers intense emotional responses, similar to experiencing anxiety or pain. In contrast, brain scans show that hoarders exhibit lower activity in regions responsible for decision-making and impulse control, making it difficult for them to discard items even when they recognize the clutter as a problem. This combination of high emotional attachment and reduced decision-making ability creates a unique challenge for those trying to overcome hoarding tendencies, as it becomes not only a psychological issue but a neurological one as well. Why understanding these psychological factors matters. Understanding the psychology behind hoarding is crucial for developing empathy toward those affected by it. When we recognize that hoarding isn't about laziness or neglect, but rather a profound struggle involving complex emotions and neurological responses, it changes how we approach this issue. These insights reveal that hoarding is an intricate interplay of attachment, trauma, cognitive patterns, and neurological factors, each one reinforcing the other. Real-life stories and case studies. Inside the world of hoarding, real-life stories often illustrate the impact of hoarding better than any statistics can. They offer a glimpse into the lives of individuals who face this unique struggle and reveal the complex web of emotions, memories, and anxieties that fuel hoarding behaviors. While each case is unique, these stories showcase the diverse ways that hoarding manifests and affects lives, relationships, and health. Through these examples, we can see both the personal side of hoarding and the broader societal implications. A mild hoarder's journey. Everyday clutter with major impact. Take the case of a middle-aged woman named Sarah, who gradually started keeping items she thought she might need in the future. To her, every plastic bag, empty container, and piece of mail held potential. Sarah believed that throwing these items away was wasteful, and so she kept everything. Over the years, her home filled up with everyday objects, leading to frustration among her family members. While Sarah's hoarding was not extreme, it affected her ability to clean, maintain organization, and feel comfortable in her own space. Sarah's case demonstrates how hoarding can build slowly over time, beginning as something harmless and growing into a pattern that eventually impacts daily life. The emotional weight of each item, combined with a sense of responsibility not to waste, kept her stuck in a cycle that limited her ability to let go. For Sarah, overcoming hoarding required addressing her beliefs about waste and exploring why each item felt so essential. With therapy, she learned to challenge these thoughts and gradually reduce her clutter. Severe hoarding and health risks. When clutter becomes hazardous in more extreme cases, hoarding can pose severe health risks, as illustrated by the story of John, an elderly man whose home had become so filled with items that moving from one room to another was almost impossible. Newspapers, boxes, and even food wrappers filled every corner of his living space. John's hoarding stemmed from a sense of loneliness after the passing of his wife. The items he collected gave him a feeling of companionship and comfort. However, as his home grew increasingly cluttered, his health declined due to mold, dust, and an inability to access basic needs. John's story highlights the health dangers associated with hoarding. Many hoarders, like John, experience respiratory issues, skin infections, and injuries due to tripping over items. Living in a cluttered space also makes it difficult to address issues like mold or pest infestations, creating hazardous living conditions. In John's case, his family eventually intervened, and with the help of professional organizers and mental health support, he was able to clear some areas of his home. However, the emotional pain of parting with his belongings remained, reflecting how hoarding often involves a painful balance between health and emotional attachment. Famous hoarding cases. The Collier brothers and extreme hoarding. One of the most well-known hoarding cases is that of the Collier brothers, Langley and Homer, who lived in New York City in the early 20th century. The brothers filled their Harlem home with thousands of items, including newspapers, furniture, musical instruments, and even human waste. Their hoarding became so severe that they created booby traps to protect their belongings from outsiders. Tragically, both brothers died in their home, trapped by the very items they had accumulated. Their case gained national attention and highlighted the extreme end of hoarding, where possessions became both a literal and figurative trap. The Collier brothers' story exemplifies the extreme psychological attachment that can develop with hoarding. In their minds, each item served a purpose or held potential value. Despite the dangers posed by their clutter, the brothers were unable to part with anything. This case sparked discussions about mental health and hoarding long before it was formally recognized as a disorder, showing how powerful the attachment to items can become. Interviews with psychologists. Expert insights into hoarding. Psychologists who specialize in hoarding disorder offer valuable insights into these real-life cases, often highlighting the diversity of hoarding experiences. Dr. Elaine Burchett, a clinical psychologist with over 2 decades of experience, explains that hoarding is not a one-size-fits-all condition. She notes that while some individuals may hoard due to trauma, others may be driven by perfectionism, indecisiveness, or even genetics. For example, research has shown that individuals with a family history of hoarding are more likely to develop hoarding behaviors themselves, suggesting a possible genetic component to the disorder. Dr. Burchett also explains that treating hoarding requires a customized approach. While cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can be highly effective, it must be adapted to address the specific beliefs and emotional connections each person has with their possessions. According to Dr. Burchett, working with hoarders involves building trust and helping them challenge long-held beliefs about their items. In cases where trauma is involved, therapy often includes working through painful memories that contribute to attachment issues, showing how complex and individualized treatment for hoarding can be. The personal and societal impact of hoarding. Real-life stories like Sarah's and John's, along with infamous cases like the Collier brothers, reveal the multifaceted nature of hoarding disorder. Hoarding affects not only the individual but also their family, friends, and the wider community. Many hoarders face social isolation, financial strain, and emotional stress, which only compounds the challenge of addressing the issue. These stories and expert insights underscore the need for compassion and understanding, showing that hoarding is far more than just messiness. It's a profound psychological struggle that impacts lives on every level. Types of hoarding and their characteristics. Hoarding can take many forms, and understanding these distinctions helps us grasp the full scope of this condition. People may hoard different types of items, and each type brings unique challenges and emotional connections. While the underlying psychology may be similar, the types of hoarding reveal specific behaviors and traits that impact how the disorder presents itself and affects daily life. From everyday clutter to more unusual collections, each type offers insight into the variety within hoarding behaviors. Different types of hoarders. Beyond just stuff, hoarders may accumulate any number of items, but certain categories tend to be more common. Physical hoarding, the most familiar type, includes the accumulation of items like newspapers, clothes, household items, and food. These objects may pile up in living spaces, often blocking areas like kitchens, bathrooms, and hallways, making them difficult to use. Physical hoarding is what many envision when thinking of hoarding, spaces filled with piles of possessions to the point of being uninhabitable. Another, lesser-known form is digital hoarding, where individuals accumulate excessive digital files, such as emails, photos, and documents. While digital hoarding may seem less impactful because it doesn't physically crowd a space, it can still cause significant stress. Digital clutter takes up virtual space, slows down devices, and leads to anxiety over deleting something important. Digital hoarders often spend considerable time organizing, categorizing, or endlessly sorting files, which can interfere with daily productivity and mental clarity. Animal hoarding. When living beings are part of the clutter, animal hoarding is a type of hoarding where individuals keep a large number of pets beyond their ability to care for them. Unlike physical or digital hoarding, animal hoarding involves living creatures, adding a layer of complexity and ethical concerns. Animal hoarders may believe they are saving these animals, even as the animals themselves often suffer due to lack of proper care, food, or hygiene. Experts find that people who engage in animal hoarding often view the animals as family, and letting go feels akin to abandoning loved ones. Animal hoarding often creates unsanitary and unsafe living conditions, both for the animals and the person involved. Local authorities and animal welfare groups sometimes intervene in extreme cases, as animal hoarding can lead to neglect and health issues. The emotional attachment in these cases is intense, and treatment requires both psychological and practical intervention, sometimes involving animal rehoming services and ongoing therapy. Compulsive shopping and freebie hoarding. Another variation is compulsive shopping or retail hoarding, where individuals buy items in excessive quantities, often without any specific need. Compulsive shoppers are driven by the thrill of acquisition rather than the use or value of the items themselves. This behavior often leads to financial strain, as well as homes filled with unused items still in their packaging. Like other forms of hoarding, compulsive shopping provides a temporary emotional lift but ultimately creates stress and clutter. A related type is freebie hoarding, where individuals feel compelled to collect free items, samples, promotional items, or giveaways, whether they need them or not. Freebie hoarders may feel they're being frugal or practical by gathering these items, but over time, this behavior can lead to overwhelming clutter. Like other hoarding types, freebie hoarding often stems from fears of scarcity or missed opportunities, where each item represents a future use that may or may not happen. Personality traits linked to hoarding tendencies. Studies show that certain personality traits may predispose people to hoarding behaviors. Perfectionism is a significant factor, as some hoarders believe they need the perfect conditions or system before they can declutter. This mindset can lead to endless procrastination, as each decision feels weighted with importance. Indecisiveness also plays a role, as hoarders often experience intense stress over making the wrong decision about what to keep or discard. This fear of regret leads to keeping more items, just in case, fueling the cycle of hoarding. Interestingly, studies have also found correlations between hoarding and traits like impulsivity and difficulty with emotional regulation. Individuals with high impulsivity may struggle to control urges to acquire items, while those with poor emotional regulation may find it hard to manage the anxiety or sadness associated with letting go of possessions. Understanding these personality traits helps psychologists develop tailored treatments for those struggling with hoarding, as each individual may require specific strategies to address the unique combination of traits. Statistics on types of hoarding across different demographics. Hoarding manifests across all demographics, but certain types may be more common in particular groups. For instance, studies suggest that physical hoarding is prevalent among older adults, often due to a lifetime of accumulated possessions and limited mobility. Younger adults, on the other hand, are more likely to engage in digital hoarding, possibly due to the widespread use of technology and the sheer volume of data created daily. Animal hoarding is less common overall but tends to be more prevalent in rural areas, where people have easier access to animals and may view them as family members. Compulsive shopping, meanwhile, appears across all age groups but is particularly associated with those who experience social anxiety, as shopping can provide a sense of control or a temporary emotional escape. The diversity within hoarding types highlights the broad scope of the disorder. Each type carries its own challenges, and understanding these differences allows for more nuanced support. By examining the specific characteristics of each type, we gain insight into how hoarding affects various aspects of life, from personal relationships to mental well-being. These insights help foster a compassionate understanding of hoarding, recognizing that it's not merely an issue of too much stuff, but a complex interaction of emotional needs and personal circumstances. Impact of hoarding on relationships and daily life. Hoarding doesn't just affect the individual who experiences it, it often impacts relationships, family dynamics, and daily functioning. The effects of hoarding extend beyond physical clutter, creating emotional and psychological stress for everyone involved. Understanding these impacts provides a deeper look into the reality of hoarding, revealing the challenges not only for the individual but also for their loved ones. Family dynamics and strained relationships. Family members of those who hoard frequently find themselves caught between wanting to help and feeling overwhelmed by the behavior. Parents, spouses, and children may all experience different types of strain when living with a person who hoards. For example, a spouse might feel frustrated by the constant presence of clutter and the resistance to tidying up, while children may feel embarrassed to bring friends over due to the cluttered home environment. Over time, this strain can lead to arguments, resentment, and even social isolation, as family members pull away from friends and neighbors to keep the hoarding issue private. Research shows that family relationships are often one of the first casualties of hoarding behaviors. In many cases, family members attempt to help by organizing or even discarding items, only to find that these efforts lead to more tension. Hoarders typically experience significant distress when others interfere with their possessions, seeing these interventions as a violation of their space. This conflict often creates a cycle where loved ones feel compelled to help, but their efforts are met with resistance, resulting in frustration and, sometimes, estrangement. Social isolation, the lonely reality of hoarding. One of the most profound impacts of hoarding is the social isolation it can cause. Many people with hoarding disorder feel ashamed or embarrassed about the state of their living environment, leading them to withdraw from friends and social gatherings. Inviting guests over becomes a source of anxiety, as the clutter may feel too overwhelming to explain or hide. As a result, hoarders may avoid social interactions altogether, creating a sense of loneliness and isolation that can worsen their mental health. This isolation extends beyond the individual. Family members also feel the effects. Children of hoarders, for example, may feel embarrassed about their home environment and choose not to bring friends over, impacting their social development and relationships. The isolation perpetuates the cycle of hoarding, as feelings of loneliness and sadness can drive individuals to acquire more items as a source of comfort. Studies show that many people who hoard experience depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues that are either caused or intensified by social isolation, creating a feedback loop that's difficult to escape. Health risks. The hidden dangers of cluttered spaces. Hoarding also poses significant health risks, both physically and mentally. Physically, cluttered spaces can lead to accidents, with piles of items creating tripping hazards or even blocking emergency exits. In extreme cases, clutter can collapse, leading to injuries. Homes affected by hoarding are also more likely to develop issues like mold, dust accumulation, and pest infestations, all of which contribute to respiratory problems, allergies, and other health issues. The clutter prevents regular cleaning, allowing these hazards to build up over time. Mental health is equally affected, as living in a cluttered environment creates constant stress. People who hoard often feel overwhelmed by their surroundings but find themselves unable to tackle the problem due to the emotional attachment they feel toward their possessions. This creates a cycle of stress, guilt, and frustration that can contribute to conditions like depression and anxiety. Family members also experience this stress, especially if they feel powerless to help or are worried about the safety and well-being of their loved one. Real examples of how hoarding affects daily life. Consider the story of Rebecca, a young woman who grew up in a household where both of her parents hoarded. For Rebecca, normal activities like family dinners, watching TV together, or even walking freely around the house were difficult due to the sheer volume of items in their home. Her parents' possessions took up every available surface, creating an environment that was not only uncomfortable but also stifling. As a result, Rebecca often spent time at friends' houses or in public spaces, avoiding home whenever possible. Another example is the case of Tom, a man in his 60s whose hoarding had grown so severe that he was unable to use his kitchen or bathroom properly. Over time, Tom's friends stopped visiting due to the clutter, and he became increasingly isolated. For Tom, everyday tasks like cooking, cleaning, and even bathing required significant effort, as each space in his home was filled with items. His health began to decline, both due to the physical toll of navigating his cluttered home and the psychological strain of isolation. Understanding the reach of hoarding's impact, these stories highlight that hoarding is not simply a personal issue, it's one that affects all aspects of a person's life, from their mental and physical health to their relationships and sense of belonging. Hoarding can make it difficult to maintain daily routines, create barriers to social interaction, and even pose risks to personal safety. By understanding the full scope of hoarding's impact, we can see that the path to recovery is about more than just decluttering. It's about rebuilding relationships, regaining independence, and restoring mental well-being. The science of decluttering, why it's so hard to let go. Letting go of possessions may seem straightforward to some, but for those with hoarding tendencies, it's an overwhelming and deeply emotional process. The science of decluttering provides insight into why letting go feels so difficult, revealing how our minds and emotions influence the decisions we make about our possessions. From mental attachments to neurological responses, these insights explain why decluttering is more than a matter of simple willpower. Mental attachments to objects, more than just stuff. Our attachment to objects often goes beyond their physical function. For many people, objects hold sentimental value, representing memories, relationships, or important moments in life. This attachment becomes even stronger for individuals with hoarding tendencies, where each item feels irreplaceable and emotionally charged. Letting go of an item can feel like erasing a memory or losing a part of oneself, which makes the act of discarding anything emotionally challenging. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as person-object attachment. Items become more than just things. They become symbols of personal history, family connections, or identity. For example, a seemingly mundane item like a ticket stub might hold memories of a memorable outing, or a broken toy could represent a child's laughter from years ago. The idea of discarding these items triggers anxiety and sadness, as if one were discarding a piece of their own life story. Decision fatigue and the overwhelming nature of choices. Decluttering requires making numerous decisions, each with its own emotional weight. Hoarders often experience decision fatigue, a psychological phenomenon where repeated decision-making drains mental energy and leads to exhaustion. For individuals who hoard, every item represents a choice, and each choice feels monumental, creating a sense of paralysis. This is one reason why, for those with hoarding tendencies, decluttering can feel overwhelming before even starting. Decision fatigue also affects the quality of decisions made. As the mind tires, it becomes harder to distinguish between items of true importance and those of lesser value. Hoarders may feel an impulse to keep everything, as the mental exhaustion of sorting through each item leaves them unable to confidently decide what to discard. This endless cycle of decisions without resolution only adds to the clutter, reinforcing the hoarding behavior over time. The neuroscience of letting go, loss aversion and brain patterns. Neurological studies have revealed intriguing insights into the brains of individuals who hoard, particularly when faced with decisions about discarding items. Loss aversion, a concept in behavioral psychology, refers to the tendency to prefer avoiding losses over acquiring equivalent gains. For hoarders, this loss aversion extends to possessions, where the idea of losing an item, even if unused, triggers intense emotional discomfort. Brain scans have shown that people with hoarding disorder exhibit heightened activity in areas associated with emotion regulation and decision-making when asked to discard items. This increased activity suggests that the act of letting go elicits a level of distress similar to experiencing physical pain or anxiety. In contrast, non-hoarders show less brain activity in these areas, indicating that they do not experience the same level of emotional distress when deciding to part with items. For hoarders, the emotional cost of letting go far outweighs the logical benefits of a decluttered space. This neurological response makes decluttering feel like an insurmountable task, where each discarded item brings emotional discomfort and stress. The role of consumerism in fueling hoarding tendencies. Consumer culture plays a significant role in reinforcing hoarding tendencies. Modern society encourages consumption, promoting the idea that acquiring more will bring happiness, security, or status. Advertising creates a sense of urgency around possessions, often implying that each new item will improve quality of life. This constant exposure to consumer messages can exacerbate hoarding behaviors, particularly for those who already struggle with attachment to possessions. Many hoarders report feeling a need to keep items for future use, a sentiment that consumerism amplifies. Sales, discounts, and limited time offers create a fear of missing out, prompting individuals to hold onto items, just in case they might be needed. Consumer culture fuels the belief that each item has potential value, which makes it challenging for hoarders to recognize when something has outlived its purpose. Understanding why decluttering is a challenge. The science behind decluttering sheds light on why it's so difficult for individuals with hoarding tendencies to let go. Emotional attachments, decision fatigue, loss aversion, and societal messages all contribute to the struggle, making it clear that decluttering is not just a physical process but a deeply psychological one. For those facing hoarding behaviors, each item represents a complex network of emotions, beliefs, and values, and parting with these possessions requires a profound shift in perspective and, often, external support. Recognizing these challenges helps to foster empathy and provides a foundation for approaching hoarding with compassion rather than judgment. Hoarding interventions and treatment options. Hoarding is a multifaceted condition, and treatment requires an equally comprehensive approach. While it may be tempting to think that simple cleanup efforts are the answer, effective intervention addresses not only the clutter but also the emotional and psychological factors that drive hoarding behaviors. Today, there are several treatment options designed to help individuals manage hoarding tendencies and build healthier relationships with their possessions. These interventions are often tailored to the needs of the individual, offering both emotional support and practical strategies. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a proven approach. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is one of the most widely used treatment methods for hoarding disorder. CBT helps individuals recognize and challenge the thought patterns that contribute to hoarding behaviors. In this form of therapy, patients work closely with a therapist to identify beliefs about possessions, such as the fear of future regret or the perception of items as extensions of the self. By addressing these beliefs, CBT helps individuals change their relationship with possessions and make more intentional decisions about what to keep or discard. CBT also includes exposure-based exercises, where individuals practice letting go of items in a controlled environment. This gradual approach allows patients to confront the anxiety associated with discarding possessions while receiving support from a therapist. Studies show that CBT can significantly reduce hoarding behaviors, although it often requires extended commitment and follow-up sessions to prevent relapse. Medications. Addressing the underlying mental health factors. In some cases, medications may be prescribed to support the treatment of hoarding disorder. While there isn't a specific medication for hoarding, certain medications can help manage symptoms related to anxiety, depression, and obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, all of which commonly co-occur with hoarding. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, a type of antidepressant, have been shown to reduce symptoms of anxiety and compulsive behaviors, making it easier for individuals to manage the emotional aspects of hoarding. Medications are typically used alongside therapy rather than as a standalone treatment. While they do not directly address hoarding behaviors, they can help individuals feel more emotionally stable, which may support their efforts to declutter and manage possessions. A mental health professional will carefully assess each individual to determine whether medication may be beneficial as part of a broader treatment plan. Professional organizers. Practical help for managing clutter. Professional organizers play a unique role in hoarding interventions, offering hands-on assistance to tackle physical clutter. Unlike traditional therapy, which addresses emotional and psychological factors, professional organizers provide practical support by helping individuals sort, categorize, and make decisions about their possessions. They often work alongside therapists, ensuring that the decluttering process is manageable and respectful of the individual's emotional needs. Professional organizers use specific techniques to help individuals confront clutter without overwhelming them. For example, they may start by focusing on less emotionally charged areas, like organizing a closet or pantry, before moving on to spaces with more sentimental items. By breaking the decluttering process into smaller steps, professional organizers make it easier for individuals to experience the rewards of a cleaner, more functional space without feeling pressured to discard everything at once. Community programs and support groups. Building a network. Many communities offer specialized programs and support groups for individuals struggling with hoarding. These programs provide a sense of belonging and shared experience, which can be incredibly valuable for those who feel isolated by their hoarding behaviors. Support groups allow individuals to connect with others who understand their struggles, share strategies, and celebrate small victories in a supportive environment. Some community programs also offer in-home assistance for severe cases, helping individuals create safer, more manageable living spaces. This may include partnerships with local agencies, social services, or health organizations. In-home support can be particularly beneficial for older adults who may face physical limitations or health risks associated with clutter. By connecting individuals with resources and support, these programs help reduce the stigma surrounding hoarding and offer practical help. The path to recovery. Embracing a holistic approach. Effective hoarding interventions combine emotional support, practical strategies, and community resources, acknowledging that hoarding is a deeply complex issue. There is no one-size-fits-all solution, as each person's hoarding behaviors are shaped by unique psychological, emotional, and physical factors. Treatment often involves a combination of therapy, medication, professional organizing, and community support, each element working together to address different aspects of the condition. While recovery from hoarding disorder is a gradual process, many individuals experience significant improvements with the right support. As they learn to challenge the beliefs and emotions that drive their hoarding, they regain control over their spaces and lives. Understanding that treatment requires compassion, patience, and flexibility is essential, as each step toward recovery is a step toward greater independence, safety, and well-being. Controversial insights. Is hoarding ever justified? Hoarding is often seen in a negative light, with cluttered homes and packed rooms symbolizing disorder or even dysfunction. But is there ever a reason for holding onto items that others might view as unnecessary? This question takes us into controversial territory, as some argue that hoarding behavior isn't always entirely without merit. From sentimental value to environmental concerns, there are cases where the line between reasonable caution and hoarding becomes blurred. Exploring these perspectives sheds light on why letting go is complex and reveals a side of hoarding that may challenge common judgments. Sentimental versus practical value. When memories matter, one perspective is that items can carry deep sentimental value that justifies keeping them. For many people, certain belongings hold memories that they find difficult to replicate or replace. A family heirloom, for instance, may not serve a practical purpose but is kept because it connects an individual to their heritage. These sentimental items provide a sense of continuity and identity, which can be powerful and comforting. For those with hoarding tendencies, however, this sentiment can extend to items others might view as insignificant, creating an emotional barrier to letting go. Sentimental value isn't inherently problematic, but it does reveal why hoarding can be such a sensitive issue. The same value that others find in a single keepsake might be found in dozens of seemingly ordinary items by someone with hoarding tendencies. In this context, hoarding behaviors reflect a deep attachment to memories and experiences. For these individuals, parting with items feels like a personal loss, which may be why they resist external pressure to declutter. Ethical and environmental perspectives on hoarding. Another controversial insight is that, in some cases, holding onto items may be environmentally or ethically motivated. In today's society, where consumerism drives a cycle of buying, discarding, and replacing, some individuals find solace in preserving what they already own. This behavior is particularly relevant in discussions about sustainability. People who hoard may argue that discarding items contributes to waste and environmental harm, especially if the items could still serve a purpose or be reused in some way. For instance, a person might keep a stack of old clothes with the intent to repurpose them or hold onto broken electronics in case they can be fixed. While these intentions may be noble, they also create a paradox. While attempting to reduce waste, individuals with hoarding tendencies may end up creating clutter that prevents effective use of their space. This complex balance between ethical motivations and practical living is one reason why some people resist letting go, despite the consequences of accumulated possessions. Modern minimalism versus hoarding. Cultural contrasts. Hoarding also raises questions about cultural values, particularly in contrast to the modern minimalism movement. Minimalism encourages people to live with fewer possessions, valuing experiences over things and prioritizing simplicity. This lifestyle has gained popularity, often seen as the antithesis of hoarding. Yet, not everyone subscribes to minimalism, and for some, the concept of letting go seems more like an imposed ideal than a lifestyle choice. Critics of minimalism argue that it sometimes overlooks the diversity of human needs and emotional experiences tied to possessions. In contrast, people with hoarding tendencies may view their possessions as a source of security or as a collection of meaningful artifacts. While minimalism celebrates empty spaces, hoarding can reflect a more complex relationship with objects, where each item is part of a larger personal narrative. This cultural contrast between minimalism and hoarding reveals how society's values influence our perceptions of hoarding. Some argue that minimalism's popularity has led to undue judgment toward those who hold onto items, without acknowledging the comfort and significance these belongings can provide. Recognizing the nuanced nature of hoarding, these controversial insights remind us that hoarding is not always a clear-cut issue. While excessive accumulation can lead to significant challenges, it's also true that items often hold value beyond mere utility. For some, keeping possessions is a way to honor memories, protect the environment, or assert a personal belief system. Understanding these motivations doesn't erase the negative effects of hoarding, but it adds context and compassion to the conversation. When viewed from these perspectives, hoarding becomes less about clutter and more about the complex, often misunderstood relationships people form with their belongings. Recognizing these nuances allows us to approach hoarding with empathy, acknowledging that the reasons behind it may vary widely and sometimes carry meaning that goes beyond surface-level judgment. Tips for overcoming hoarding tendencies. While hoarding tendencies can feel overwhelming, change is possible with the right strategies and support. Tackling clutter and altering one's relationship with possessions doesn't happen overnight, but small, intentional steps can make a difference over time. These practical tips are designed to help individuals move toward a healthier, more balanced relationship with their belongings, creating spaces that feel manageable and fulfilling. Starting small, building momentum with minor changes. One of the most effective approaches for overcoming hoarding tendencies is to start small. Rather than attempting to declutter an entire room or house at once, begin with a single drawer, shelf, or corner. Tackling a manageable area first reduces the chances of feeling overwhelmed and builds confidence in making decisions about possessions. For example, sorting through a small drawer of miscellaneous items can help practice decision-making without the stress of dealing with a larger space. Small successes create a sense of achievement, which can motivate further progress. Each small area that's organized provides a tangible reminder that change is possible, fostering a mindset shift from "I can't let go" to "I'm capable of making choices." Over time, these small steps add up, making larger decluttering projects feel less intimidating and more achievable. Mindfulness techniques for emotional balance. Mindfulness can be a powerful tool for managing the anxiety and attachment associated with hoarding. Practicing mindfulness involves staying present in the moment, which can help individuals observe their emotions without judgment. When sorting through items, mindfulness encourages a calm, non-reactive state, allowing people to make decisions based on clarity rather than emotional impulse. Mindfulness can also help people confront feelings of fear, guilt, or regret associated with discarding items. By staying present and acknowledging these emotions, individuals can gradually learn to process their feelings without allowing them to dictate their behavior. Techniques like deep breathing, guided meditation, or even a simple pause before making a decision can bring emotional balance, creating a calmer mental environment for decluttering. Dealing with relapse. Strategies for avoiding setbacks. Relapse is common when overcoming hoarding tendencies, as old habits and emotional attachments don't disappear instantly. Rather than viewing setbacks as failures, it's helpful to see them as part of the recovery process. If clutter begins to build up again, taking a proactive approach can prevent the situation from escalating. Regular maintenance, such as setting aside time each week to organize and declutter, can keep spaces from becoming overwhelming. Additionally, creating a designated revisit box for items of uncertain value can be helpful. Instead of keeping everything in the main living space, items can be placed in this box for a set period, perhaps 3 or 6 months. If the item hasn't been used or missed within that time, it may feel easier to let it go. This technique allows individuals to ease into decluttering, providing a buffer that reduces the anxiety of immediate disposal. Building a support network. The power of community and connection. Having a support network is invaluable for anyone working to overcome hoarding tendencies. Family, friends, or support groups can offer encouragement, practical help, and accountability. Sharing the journey with others reduces feelings of isolation and provides emotional reinforcement, as loved ones can help recognize and celebrate small victories. Support groups, either in person or online, provide a safe space for discussing challenges and sharing strategies with others who understand the struggle. Community resources, such as hoarding-specific support groups, can also be instrumental, connecting individuals with professionals and peers who can guide them through the process. Working alongside others creates a shared experience, helping individuals feel less alone and more empowered in their efforts to change. Moving toward a healthier relationship with possessions. Overcoming hoarding tendencies is about more than decluttering. It's about creating a balanced, sustainable relationship with possessions. By starting small, practicing mindfulness, preparing for setbacks, and seeking support, individuals can gradually shift their mindset and environment. These strategies foster confidence and resilience, paving the way for lasting change that brings greater peace, safety, and satisfaction in daily life. Hoarding is a complex and often misunderstood condition that impacts millions worldwide. As we've explored, the reasons people hold on to possessions extend far beyond simple clutter or messiness. Hoarding behaviors are deeply rooted in psychological, emotional, and sometimes even neurological factors, making it a condition that requires empathy and understanding. Whether it's attachment to memories, fear of loss, or anxiety about the future, each item kept by someone with hoarding tendencies represents a larger story and, often, an unspoken need. This journey through the psychology of hoarding reveals the depth of these needs and offers insight into why letting go can feel like a monumental task. Throughout this video, we've examined hoarding from multiple perspectives. We've looked at the various types of hoarding, from physical and digital accumulation to the unique and challenging realm of animal hoarding. Real-life case studies highlighted how hoarding impacts lives, relationships, and health, showing that the effects are far-reaching, affecting not only the individuals but also their families, friends, and communities. Understanding these impacts underscores the importance of addressing hoarding not as a matter of cleanliness or order, but as a mental health issue deserving of respect and serious consideration. The science of decluttering provided us with an understanding of why it's so hard to let go, particularly for those with hoarding disorder. Neurological insights, emotional attachments, and cognitive patterns all combine to make the decluttering process challenging, even painful, for individuals who hoard. This isn't simply a matter of willpower. It's a deep-seated struggle that many people fight daily. Recognizing these factors brings compassion to the conversation, helping us see that hoarding is far more than just too much stuff. Interventions and treatment options offer hope to those affected by hoarding. Cognitive behavioral therapy, medications, professional organizing, and community programs each play a vital role in supporting individuals as they work to manage their hoarding behaviors. Recovery from hoarding is a gradual process, but it's one that can lead to significant improvements in quality of life, independence, and emotional well-being. Finally, the controversial insights surrounding hoarding reminded us that, in some cases, keeping items may have value beyond appearances. Whether due to sentimental attachments, ethical beliefs, or cultural perspectives, the decision to keep possessions is often more nuanced than it seems. While excessive accumulation can create challenges, acknowledging these personal and societal factors fosters a more balanced view, helping us move beyond judgment and toward understanding. In conclusion, hoarding is a journey, a complex interplay of emotion, memory, identity, and sometimes trauma. For those who struggle with it, the path to a healthier relationship with possessions is often filled with setbacks but also with the potential for growth, resilience, and empowerment. By fostering compassion and seeking out effective interventions, we can support those affected by hoarding and create an environment where understanding replaces stigma.